today's question of the day is, what is your ultimate Disney comfort movie?
Ooh, good question.
Mine is Ratatouille.
Love it.
Yeah, why is Ratatouille your favorite comfort movie?
Okay, so the color scheme, it's very warm colors. And I just find I grew up watching the Food Network, and anything that involves cooking or food just instantly comforts me.
Love it. Love it, love it, love it. Lariah, how about you?
I'm going with Monsters, Inc.
Okay, why Monsters, Inc.?
It's just very nostalgic, and there's monsters in it, and they just comfort me.
That's funny. Okay, Candace, how about you?
Oh, dear. Moana.
Ooh, why? Just because of the water?
Yep.
Great movie.
Yeah, because you have a little bit of Moana in you.
No.
Oh, you're silly. Okay, so my answer to that is I find myself going back to what is the one Coco is the one that I always tend to go back to.
Another great one.
Yeah, and maybe that's just a now thing that I'm kind of thinking Coco is my jam because there's so many good ones. But yeah, the last few times I've just wanted a Disney movie, I've gone back to Coco because I love the same. I love the music, I love the colors, all of that kind of stuff.
Hi, I'm Scott.
I'm Candace.
I'm Lacey.
And I'm Lariah.
Grab a drink and come hang with us at the Hangar Bar.
Okay, welcome back to the Hangar Bar, everyone. We are super glad you are here with us. We have an exciting episode today. This is our penultimate episode for the season. Is that the right word, Candace?
That's a big word. I'm not ready for that.
It is. So this is the next to last episode for the season. So we have 2 left. As usual, we'll take our break through December and January just to give ourselves a little bit of think time and prep time for next season.
But this year we are not abandoning you.
That's right.
Loyal listeners.
Yes, loyal listeners. We're going to continue to release something during the break, but we'll give you more about that probably in next week's episode. But just plan on still tuning in every week for us during our break, because I think it'll be fun. Before we jump into today's topic, remember, check us out on our social medias, Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, YouTube. Come out, interact with us. We want to hear from you. We want you to tell us what we want to do next season. The things that you want us to talk about, the things that you don't want us to talk about, all of those kind of things, just let us know. Hypothetically, tell us the things that you want us to do. And I use that word very carefully because tonight's episode is all about Disney hypotheticals.
Yay, I love these ones.
Ooh, the segue.
Ooh. I'm good at segues. So what we're going to do is I have a list of some things that we're going to talk about where I'm going to ask, what if? And then once we're done with that, once I state the question, we'll discuss what the world would be like if that thing had happened. That make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, so we ready to just jump right in?
Sure.
What if Walt Disney had lived longer? So imagine if Walt Disney had been around for another 10 or 20 years, how might the parks have evolved with his continued influence? Would EPCOT actually have become a full-fledged city like Walt originally envisioned? What attractions might have been created or changed with his direct input versus it being transitioned to Roy and then the Walt Disney Company? So what if Walt Disney had lived longer?
The world would be a better place.
That's a very definitive statement. Tell us why you say that.
Because we would have had his influence and his innovation that much longer.
Okay, what kind of innovation might we have seen?
I don't know, because it was boundless with that man.
So Candace, the point of a what if discussion is to talk about what if.
Did.
Okay, so think about some of the things that might be different. Lacey, Lariah, what do you think the world might be like if Walt had lived 10 or 20 years longer than he did?
Okay, I'm gonna ask a dumb question. What year did Walt pass away?
1966.
Okay. So,
Walt Disney World opened 5 years after.
okay. I mean, it's hard because I feel like if I went to Disneyland, I might have a better idea, even though I'm assuming that Disneyland is not very different from Disney World. So I guess my answer would be more about maybe the movies more than Disney World. I don't know. Maybe that's a weird way to look at it. But
No, not at all. So what about the movies?
okay, so if he passed away in 66, I'm trying to think of movies that came out soon after that and when. I don't know, because I don't know how different it would have been, because I'm thinking about like the movies that came out in 1990. That's when things really shifted, right? Wouldn't you guys say?
Yeah, the animation style changed. That's about when Michael Eisner was trying to get rid of the animation department too, right?
Oh,
Like
really?
early 90s, early mid 90s, something like that.
See, I think he would have been, the animation style got a little different with the square fingers and stuff like that. I don't know if we would have seen that or not. You know?
Yeah, because Walt was really into the kind of the realism thing, right? You look at Snow White, you look at Cinderella, you look at all the movies he was involved in with people characters, was very, very much a realism versus a true cartoony look.
Yeah.
He wanted them to be motion pictures. He wanted them to compete with regular movies.
I think though that Pixar, he would have been, I don't know, this is a bold statement, but I could see him being pretty proud of Pixar because like the animation style, like, because he was always like moving forward, developing new ideas, new ways of doing things. So I think that Pixar probably would have still happened.
Do you think he would have bought Pixar, or do you think he would have built Pixar?
Built.
Like he would have been on the forefront of that computer animation revolution.
I think so, yeah.
I agree. I don't think he would have ever gone in with another animation company just because of what happened with Oswald.
That's true. That's very true. What was that, NBC Universal? Who was that?
Yes, it was Universal.
Okay. That stole Oswald from him. Yeah, I think like you think about the animation, and one of the things Walt always said, like when you talk about the movies, Walt always said he hated sequels. Always move on to the next story. So if he had lived another 10 or 20 years, would we be living in the world where they're getting ready to release Frozen 863? They've released 87 Cars movies, including Planes, which was objectively the worst movie ever produced by the Walt Disney Company. Would that kind of thing have happened if Walt had lived another 20 years?
I guess it would have depended on where his attention shifted, and if it would have stayed with animation and movies, or if it would have gone to more park development.
Yeah, because even in the 60s, he was at a spot where he was more interested in the parks than he was the movies and the studio.
Because that was
at
a well-oiled
point.
machine,
Right,
running by itself.
Yeah, and he probably would have resented if he would have had to step back into that space. Interesting. This is such a cool what if, I think.
So let's talk about EPCOT, because as much as I think he would have wanted it to be Progress City, I think Roy kind of would have put the kibosh on that and said, we cannot afford to do this. Because just thinking about the infrastructure that would have had to be built for that, there would have been no way.
And all of the regulation and that
yes,
kind of
Reedy
thing.
Creek is fantastic, but it never would have, with all the innovation in the world, I don't think it ever would have gotten off the ground.
Yeah, I don't know. Walt was pretty hard-headed, though.
Oh, terribly so.
And everybody told him not to do Disneyland, and he still did that.
Yes, but building a theme park is much different than building a city for people to live in and work in and all of these things.
In Walt's head, was it that different?
No.
Because I honestly think we probably would have gotten the start of a
Progress City.
And it may have just ended up being like not a celebration. Where do the cast members live? Was
Some
that
live in Celebration, yes, but others live in Kissimmee.
Wasn't there like a campus built for them at one point? Wasn't there a town that was like Disney Town?
So the college program is in Flamingo Crossing.
Okay.
But I think that's just a group of buildings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wonder if like Progress City wouldn't have ended up being a place like a company town.
Could have been.
With like the people mover to bring people into work and take them home, and the monorail to not only for guests but for employees and that kind of thing, that cast members to get around. I think that may have ended up where it was, that Walt still would have used that to sort of show people what a community could be.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think he would have had trouble bringing business into it.
Yes.
Like true business into that kind of a community, because you're limiting your pool of talent. You're limiting what you can do. I think it would have just been really hard to like get it off the ground in a successful way.
Mm-hmm.
And would something like that have potentially bankrupted Disney and made it to where the Disney we know and love today would cease to exist?
Could have, depending on how hard he pushed.
Right. And how hard a Roy or somebody else in the Disney company pushed back on him.
Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting thing to think about. Because, what would Walt think about today's EPCOT? Or even 1971 EPCOT?
Well, 1971 EPCOT didn't.
Or 1981 EPCOT.
There we go.
Sorry.
I think he would have appreciated the World Showcase aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he would have sort of thought the future world, as it was at the time, the front part, was just an extension of Tomorrowland. Like,
right.
I can actually see him being kind of saucy about that.
Mm-hmm.
But I can see him appreciating the cultural aspect of it. And I can see him appreciating the edutainment part of things. But I can also see him being like, what are you doing? We have all of that over in Magic Kingdom.
Right. Why didn't we do something different?
Right.
Yeah, I think that would be interesting. So, Lariah, what do you think? What do you think the world would be like if Walt had lived another 20 years? If he had lived to 1986 instead of 1966?
I think that it would all be bigger. That's very generalized, and I know, but we would have just had a lot more of everything, because he was very, like, you couldn't tell him you couldn't do something. So we would have progressed further very quicker, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like, I can see Walt saying, okay, the Florida project worked. Why don't we build something somewhere else and just make it to where you could get people into the family, the family business in multiple different places, and sort of find different ways to engage people around the country, because back then flying was a first class kind of thing. He was kind of searching for audience when he went to Florida too, right? So would he have said, let's build one in New York, let's build one in Middle America, let's build one, heck, he wanted to build one in California, Northern California. So yeah, I wonder, I think that's an interesting thought exercise to be like, what else would Walt have wanted to build?
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah. Well, okay. Anything else that we want to say about if Walt had lived another 20 years? Nope. Okay. So we're going to start the next one, and we're going to talk a little bit about, you mentioned Pixar as we were talking about the last one. So what if Disney had never acquired Pixar? So think about what that would have meant, or what it would mean if you think about Disney World, you think about Disneyland, California Adventure, EPCOT, all the places where Pixar is kind of ingrained today. You also think about all the movies that were made under the Pixar Disney umbrella. So how might the parks and the Disney movie universe look different without the impact of Pixar? Would they have would Disney have still pursued the same technological advancements in animation? Which Pixar inspired attractions would be missing, and what original Disney content might have taken their place?
To start off, I don't like this what if.
Yeah. I hate this. Make it go away.
I feel like people fight about Pixar a lot with Disney because I feel like you either love Pixar and appreciate it or at least, for instance, not talking about the movies, more of IP. I feel like a lot of people can't get down with a lot of IP.
Right. Yeah, a lot of people are very anti-IP in the park because they want to continue to have new stories told there.
Yes. I think it would be less appealing to kids. Not like completely unappealing, but I feel like Pixar brings out the best in children.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I think so.
I don't know.
I think so. Like the stories that they tell, the way they tell their stories, kids really like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely think that we would have gotten the same sort of stories if Pixar wasn't a thing. I think Disney would have definitely gone down that same animation style, the computer animation. And I don't know, I think that we would have had the same sort of stuff, just not called Pixar.
Yeah, I think they eventually would have had to go to that style. Just as technology changed, they would have had to figure that out. Or, as like we mentioned earlier, Eisner wanted to pull them out of animation altogether.
Which is crazy.
Was that because they had purchased Pixar?
No.
So that was before the Pixar purchase?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's just crazy to move Disney away from animation. Just crazy.
Now you understand why I feel about him the way I feel about him.
We may make another hypothetical, though, that's not on my list after we have this one, because that brings up another really good hypothetical for me that I want you to think about, Candace.
I don't want to think about it.
Okay, so as we think, like I'm just trying to think around Disney World, like the first thing that popped into my head that is 100% Pixar themed is Toy Story Land. If Disney had not bought Pixar, Toy Story Land would not exist today.
True story.
Yes, and I feel like what I was saying with it's appealing to kids, like what else in Hollywood studio is really appealing to a young audience besides that?
That's really it. I mean, you have Galaxy's Edge, but I don't know that many little tiny kids that are that into Star Wars that aren't going to get scared by some of that stuff.
Mm-hmm. So if we think about Toy Story Land, what would have replaced it? Like they still would have needed to expand the park. They still would have needed to keep things fresh.
They would have probably put in Marvel in there. So I'm glad it's Toy Story Land.
Yeah. When Toy Story was coming out, what other cartoon movies were coming out? Because Toy Story is what, 2000?
I thought it was like late 90s.
It might have been.
I can look it up.
Candace is looking right now.
Oh, she is.
1995?
So Toy Story 2 was 1999. Yes, the original Toy Story was 1995.
So Google for me what Disney cartoons came out in the mid-90s.
Okay, so Rescuers Down Under was 1990, Beauty and the Beast was 91, Mighty Ducks was 92, Homeward Bound was 1993, then Wild Hearts Can't Be Broken was 1991.
What in the heck is that?
It's a 1991 film about the life of a rider of diving horses. Sounds terrible.
Aladdin came out in 92. Lion King was in 94. Pocahontas was in 95. Hunchback of Notre Dame was 96. Hercules was 97. Mulan 98. Tarzan 99. And Dinosaur 2000.
Okay, and that was the entire square finger era.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah. So of those movies that were coming out at the same time, would any of those make a good replacement for what is now Toy Story Land?
Hunchback.
Yeah.
I just gave Candace the look she usually gives me.
I mean, the music's fantastic.
Yeah, but what would the ride be?
I don't know. Frollo's weird emotions about everything.
Oh, God.
You could call it the attraction of self-unawareness.
They could do doesn't Quasi vault down the church, and
He does a lot of flying around.
yeah. So you could make a roller coaster-ish kind of ride through the church
cathedral.
and through the cathedral, which would be kind of
Notre
cool.
Dame. I'm sure
Yeah.
France would love that.
Yeah.
They could do live entertainment with Topsy Turvy.
They used to have a live entertainment version of Hunchback at Disney MGM Studios.
Did they?
That would be pretty cool.
They sure did.
What other Pixar things show up around the park? Everybody's favorite characters to meet are
The
Pixar.
Incredibles.
Yeah, The
Yeah.
Incredibles have a ride in Disneyland and California Adventure. Well, just in California Adventure.
Mm-hmm.
And some of
And
the... Go ahead.
it wasn't there some sort of Monsters Incorporated show,
I think so.
the Scare Floor or something?
That's in Magic Kingdom.
Yeah. That's still there?
Mm-hmm. The laugh floor.
Yeah. And
And then Remy
yeah,
in
Epcot.
Epcot.
the newly announced Monsters Inc. roller coaster would be themed as something else.
Mm-hmm.
Like
What?
the parks. You didn't know that, Lariah?
No. You guys are my Disney news source.
Well, that's good. So we'll sidetrack just a little bit there. So at the last D23, they announced several 5 new attractions. 2 of Villains Land in Magic Kingdom. They also introduced a Cars off-road racing attraction for Magic Kingdom. They're going to get rid of Tom Sawyer's Island and the riverboat to make way for all of that. And then in the other one that I'll talk about, since we were just talking about it in Hollywood Studios, they're building a Monsters Land, right? It's going to be a whole area.
Oh
It's an
my
attraction of the
God.
flying doors.
Right. But I thought it was going to be a whole Monsters area.
I don't know that they're doing a land.
Okay.
Because they don't know where it's going to go yet.
Right. But the ride that they announced is the first ever floorless, hanging roller coaster
Oh
What?
my
in
God.
a Disney park. So it's looks like they're going to theme it around the flying doors segment of Monsters Inc.
That's cool.
That's
Yeah.
so cool.
Yeah. And if Disney had never bought Pixar, that wouldn't happen.
Well,
Sad.
We would
Well,
never
it's
know
not
the joy
sad,
that
but
is
it
Edna
is.
mode.
That's true. No capes.
Jack never would have fought with the raccoon.
Jack's Num Num cookies wouldn't be
That's correct.
around Disney,
Frozone never would ask Honey where his super suit is.
right? All
Oh.
these sad things. Pixar was such a good add to the Disney universe because they go so well together.
They do.
Yeah.
They're both really good at storytelling. I agree, Lariah. I don't want to talk about this one anymore. It makes me sad.
doesn't hurt.
Let's move on.
Okay, so we're going to move on to one that's not on the list, and Candace, you're the reason that I'm bringing this one up because we were talking about Michael Eisner. So what if Michael Eisner had never been the CEO at Walt Disney? How would the company look different today?
Well, MGM, okay, Disney Hollywood Studios may never have gotten built because that was his theme park dream, as was California Adventure.
Mm-hmm. His idea for California Adventure was trash. They've made it a lot better since then, but the original iteration of that was trash.
You tell me a majority of his ideas that were not trash.
MGM Studios looked good, and he saved the parks.
Okay, fine. I said a majority of his ideas. Sequels direct to DVD is trash.
Yes. Yeah.
Closing down an animation department at a company that was founded on animation is trash.
Yes, but this is a what if scenario. Like if we assume none of that happened because he wasn't the CEO,
Mm-hmm.
Think back to
Frank
when
Wells would have done a fine job without him.
they came together as a package deal. Would he have come to Disney?
I don't know.
Like, that's kind of what I'm asking is, what if, like, that had never happened?
I'm
Like,
sorry, but if you throw enough money at somebody, they're going to be able to work with somebody. So if Frank Wells was really the draw for that relationship, which I don't know if he was or not, but if you throw enough money with him and say, okay, well, instead of this Michael person, let's bring in Carl and we'll pay you this much money. I bet Frank and Carl would have worked lovely together.
but how would the company look different today?
I don't know because I don't know Carl.
So assume you do know Carl. You're making this what if scenario thing extremely difficult.
I never said I liked what if scenarios.
So let's assume that Michael Eisner and Frank Wells never made their way to Disney.
Okay.
The rest of the world stayed the same. The parks would have gone through their time when they were starting to lose their maintenance a little bit. They were starting to lose their luster a little bit, started losing money a little bit. What would the world look like today if Eisner hadn't come in and saved the parks and tried to cut the animation department and built a couple of new theme parks and started doing direct to DVD things and that kind of thing? And Lacey, Lariah, feel free to jump in too. I know that's just an area you're not as familiar with, but I just wonder what the Disney universe would look like had Eisner never been there.
I mean, it could have been like you were saying when the parks lost their luster and all of that. It could have potentially been the end of the Disney parks as we know them.
Mm-hmm. Like they could have very well been sold off.
Yes, it could have gone by the way of River Country.
Mm-hmm. So if like somebody who didn't believe in the theme parks as much as Eisner did comes in to run the Disney company, sees them struggling and says, we just don't want to be in that business anymore. Who do they get sold to?
Universal.
So Universal, like all of the parks, does that mean like the Disney we would know today would be more roller coaster based, less story based, less perfect as Disney likes things to be?
Mm-hmm.
And would we be as big a fans of the theme parks, or would we do other things? We do other things anyway, but you know what I'm saying.
I do. And I think without a lot of the Disney magic, and that sounds really cheesy, but I'm going to say it, without that magic and that perfection and those stories that we grew up with, I don't think it would have nearly the impact on us that it does.
Yeah, I agree. Lacey, Lariah, anything you have to add to that what if scenario?
I don't think so.
No. When was this time when things were kind of dying?
It was the 80s and early 90s.
I don't know, because correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if it would have necessarily just died. I think that someone would have been able to step in and kind of save the day, because I don't know. I think about other things that kind of like Universal. I don't know when Universal Studios was built either. And if you do, jump in and tell me.
I don't.
But I mean, in my brain, I kind of think that what had saved them and what has kept them going was Harry Potter.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that something could have potentially saved Disney eventually. Because a company like that's been for how many years I don't think it would have just like completely died. I think it probably would have still had a dry spell, but something, either a movie or someone stepping in to kind of change something would have saved it. But we probably wouldn't have the same Disney today that, you know, if he wasn't there, I don't know if it would be the same today.
Right. I'm just looking to see if I can find when Universal California opened, and they're making it hard to find, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. But yeah, I think I agree, and that's what I was kind of saying was, like, somebody else would have had different priorities. So would they have come in and said, look, the Disney parks name has value, because Eisner was CEO from 84 to 2005. So if somebody else had come in 1984 and said, look, the parks are hemorrhaging cash right now. We can't afford the upkeep on them. People aren't visiting as much as they were, but the name still has value. Let's sell it.
Mm.
The parks, I don't think the parks closed down, but I think they look 100% different than they do today. You still have the same basic footprint of EPCOT, of Magic Kingdom, and of Disneyland. California Adventure doesn't get built. MGM Studios doesn't get built. Animal Kingdom doesn't get built. All of those things don't necessarily get built if they sell off the theme park, because people are just going to try and dump as much cash into that to get their money's worth. Interesting. Okay. So I'm going to move on to the next one. And Lariah, I am going to ask you this question, this hypothetical, and let you answer first. So what if Pirates of the Caribbean had never been created? So what impact would the absence of that had on the development of other rides and attractions? How would it have affected Disney culture? And what may have filled in the gap if Pirates had never been created? So, Lariah, talk to me a little bit about the world if Pirates never existed.
Well, Adventureland would be a pretty sad place.
Yes.
There would just be this air of, wow, there's something that should be here that's not.
I just feel like something's missing. Tear.
No, but I don't know. I feel like maybe it's just personal, but Pirates has a huge impact on that area alone. It like sets the mood for that whole part of the park. And it's really one of the most pivotal water ride attractions they have there. I feel like there's a lot of stuff that it's very well known for. And yeah, there would just kind of be like an emptiness. I don't know. I feel like that ride is very like the Death Drop or George. Like there's that ride holds a lot of legend.
Yeah.
So
what could have potentially replaced it? Is there anything in the Disney universe that you think would be a good addition to Frontierland? Because we're talking about if Pirates never existed, none of the movies ever existed. Adventureland. So is there something else that would fit in Adventureland that would have maybe filled that gap, that space that they needed to fill, and potentially became the franchise that Pirates became?
See, I mean, the first thing that came to mind, which is already near there, is the Jungle Cruise, because they have pretty similar stories, like adventures, I guess. Dang, that's a toughie.
What about something like, would they have been able to expand like the Swiss Family Robinson more?
No.
The Swiss Family Tree Mansion. Not just a tree house, but a tree mansion.
I don't know that movie well enough to know if there would have been anything attraction worthy.
No.
That wouldn't just be a dumb walkthrough treehouse.
It's not dumb.
Okay, that's my opinion. Dumb treehouse attraction. And this is where I struggle, because I'm sitting here trying to think through something like another idea in Adventureland type space that could have been a creative like story ride first before it became a movie. Candace is raising her hand. What can I help you with, Candace?
I think that an Aladdin attraction better than the spitting camels would be amazing, like a Cave of Wonder sort of situation.
Candace, I was thinking the same thing. It's like the only movie that would make sense in that area.
Yeah. But it could be kind of adventure-y, like you have to prove that you're the diamond in the rough. And
yeah.
That could get super real really fast. Scare a lot of kids.
Especially if one has claustrophobia.
Yeah.
Oh, Candace.
What?
So, like, I'm trying to think of other, like, what is a good story, like a book or Something that wasn't made into a movie that
Muppet
Disney could
Treasure
have.
Island.
Ooh.
But something like a Treasure Island kind of leads back towards Pirates, though.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm thinking, like, what? The original Pirates was built in the 60s?
Yes.
So it was the last thing Walt worked on, right?
Yes. In California.
In
And
California.
they weren't going to bring it to Florida at all.
Right. Tell the audience why they weren't going to bring it to Florida.
Because not all that long ago, there were pirates actually in the area of the Bahamas. And so they didn't want to scare people with having a attraction celebrating pirates in Florida when all the terrible things happened that pirates brought upon the Bahamas.
Yeah, they thought people in Florida wouldn't like the attraction just because it was so close to their culture already. And then people were like, no, it needs to be here. So they built it.
Thank you, people.
But I'm like thinking swashbuckling. I'm thinking like, even like, what are some good adventure books?
Robinson Crusoe.
Yeah. Like a story that Disney could have borrowed
Mm-hmm.
to make an attraction that then could have turned into a movie franchise.
And they did have a live action, like a real live action Treasure Island movie that they did a way long time ago.
Yeah.
So they could have just done that.
Yeah. So audience, this is a good question for you to come out and interact with us on, because I'd be interested in your takes into what would be another Adventureland appropriate story that could have turned into a movie franchise like Pirates did. Because my mind is just not drawing anything that would kind of fill that void if it was missing.
But if it wasn't there, we wouldn't know it was missing.
Right. Would we like the park less if that was missing?
Potentially.
Again, I don't like the direction this is going.
I know. Let's move on.
Okay, before we move on, anything else, Lacey, Lariah, that you want to add to What If Pirates was missing?
Nope, I want to get out of this one as fast as I can.
Okay, here's an interesting hypothetical that I think we may do one more after this one. What if Walt had chosen someplace other than Orlando for Walt Disney World? Whether it be somewhere else in Florida, whether it be somewhere else in the United States. What if it wasn't in Orlando? Would Universal Orlando have grown up to be Universal Nebraska because that's where Disney was? Did Universal follow Disney, or would Orlando still be because of its really cool location, still kind of be a theme park mecca just without Disney involved? And
That's
then
a good question.
maybe where else would he have potentially bought to build?
Well, it's interesting because he purchased swampland.
Yeah.
So it's like, to begin with, maybe I'm wrong, but the weather, I'm sure, like the location has a huge part of it, but wasn't also a big part of it because the land was so cheap.
Yep.
Yeah, because it was swampland. And that's why he bought the land under hundreds of different company names, because he knew the prices would skyrocket as soon as they found out that Disney was the one buying.
Oh, smart.
Mm-hmm. And he was proven right, because I think the last probably, what did I read, like 100 or 1,000 acres or something like that was almost the same cost as the first 90% of the land that they bought, because it got out that it was Disney buying. So the prices just skyrocketed.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So let's start there. I asked a lot of questions there. Where else could have Walt built to have a Disney World type complex like we see in Orlando? Where else would be a good location, assuming he could get cheap land, all of that kind of stuff remaining true? Where else would he have built?
Texas?
Ew.
Like outside of Houston?
Probably.
No snow,
Yeah.
close water access. Yeah, I think Houston would. I'm still surprised they haven't put up some sort of Disney Texas, just something in the middle of the country.
But are you?
I kind of am. I think they could print money with a location in Texas, because Texas has as many people as almost the rest of the country. And it would make something drivable for us.
It's drivable now. Calm down.
So, yeah, I think Texas. I know at one point Walt was looking to build a ski resort type place that would summer as a theme park, winter as a ski resort in Northern California, in the mountains of California. Would that have become more of a reality if he had not decided to pursue the Florida project?
No.
Why not?
I think his ultimate goal was to like cover the country.
Mm,
And he had California already sewn up with Disneyland. And so he had to go in the opposite direction to continue the expansion.
right. Okay. So let's talk about what Orlando would look like. Orlando was just kind of a little hole in the wall, out of nowhere. Nobody even knew about it kind of town when Walt started buying up property south of there. But it ended up being a very good location weather-wise. It doesn't really get hit by strong hurricanes all that often. It's good weather most of the year. It rains a lot, but would Orlando still have been a place where other theme park people would have come in and built the destination that it is with Disney, but without Disney?
No, I don't think that's possible. I really don't. And I'm not just saying that as a like staunch Disney fan.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's possible because they had to have somebody like lay the groundwork.
Mm-hmm. So it could be done.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think also, I asked that question. I can answer kind of my opinion on that one too. I think Disney, like you said, they laid the groundwork. They're also the ones that brought the people.
Mm-hmm.
And the people that came second are living off of the goodwill that people have for Disney. So Universal, SeaWorld. What else is in Florida? Is that it?
Gator World.
Yeah. That would probably still be there. Lariah wants to go visit there next time.
I mean, that's everywhere outside in Florida.
Oh, Lariah, did you know that in Orlando you can go on like a gator adventure, like go pet gators and stuff?
She's too shocked.
Well, we know you want to do that your next trip there.
Did she?
Did we
Jump
lose
off.
Lariah, or does she just not want to talk about gators?
I'm not with her currently, so I don't know where she
Did
is.
she fall asleep?
Here, I will send her a message while we talk. But
We lost one.
man down,
Woman.
woman down. Where was I going with that?
But if you think about it, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more because now I'm all fired up. But if you think about it, in the state of Florida alone, the Disney Corporation employs 75,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane.
What other company is going to come in and put up a theme park and employ that kind of people? That number of people.
Right. And even if they did, I think that's where I was going to, is they brought in, Disney came in, built, and everybody else followed.
Mhm.
So if Disney moved to Texas, they would have followed to Texas because the audience followed Disney.
Mm-hmm.
So Universal California wouldn't have become Universal Florida. It would have become Universal Texas.
Right.
It wouldn't have become SeaWorld Florida. It would be SeaWorld Texas. And Lariah's headphones died. That's why she can't hear us.
Okay, I'm here now.
Oh,
They did die.
Okay, coming in
They were
hot.
making a funky noise.
well, now you're making a funky noise. Pipe
No,
down.
she's just being loud. That's calm it down. Calm it down.
Calm it.
So I don't know when you stopped being able to hear us, Lariah, but I have to go back now. Did you know that in Central Florida you can go to like a gator park and like go on a gator adventure in Orlando where you get to feed gators and stuff?
You know, I didn't know that, but I'm not surprised. That's their business, I guess. Count me out, though.
No, now we know that you've actually been doing all this like covert research because you're planning our next trip. And we know that that's going to be one of the adventures that you want to go on.
I would pass away.
From excitement.
I would just self-combust, honestly.
Oh,
I will.
No, ma'am.
Lariah, did I ever show you the pictures of me feeding the gators in the Philippines?
No.
I was like, I had a fishing pole with chicken on the end of it and was feeding gators.
Why?
Why not?
Because ew.
Because those things don't need to be fed like that.
They can feed themselves.
They're prime hunters. And if they're going to keep that title, then they can do it themselves.
Right?
I got beef with gators.
We all know.
I prefer
Everyone.
chicken, but
Oh, that's funny. Okay, so let's do our last what if scenario. What if Disney never introduced Fast Pass and later Genie Plus and later Lightning Lane that they have today? So how would our park experience be different? And how would the parks be different if they had never introduced a skip the line feature? You don't have to raise your hand.
well, I feel like I've been dominating the conversation, so I was going to let somebody else go first.
Go for it.
I think it would actually be better
Tell us why.
because people wouldn't have a choice. They would have to make the choice to get in the line and wait for something rather than trying to skip the line and go from thing to thing to thing to thing. And they wouldn't know any better. So they wouldn't be all in an uproar about it.
Right. How would crowds be? Would it feel any different?
No. I mean, I don't think as many people would go to parks knowing that they were going to have to wait. But there again, it would depend on the rest of society's evolution of instant gratification.
Mm-hmm.
And if stuff didn't happen like that all the time, so people didn't know any different, they might. I don't know.
Yeah.
How about this? How about they didn't have that, but they had to get rid of live shows because the whole thing is like, yeah, there's rides there or attractions, excuse me. But when they have other entertainment, live shows, they have all these restaurants, parades, stuff like that, that also helps crowd control that way, where it's like you don't just go just to ride an attraction, you go for the shows and stuff. So, maybe if fast passes weren't a thing or Lightning Lane, that still could have, if they still had as much live shows, that could have helped with that.
Yeah, maybe they even have more live entertainment, more frequent parades, maybe parades in different parts of the parks,
Yeah.
more live theater shows in different places as well. Yeah, because those are people eaters. Maybe My Beloved Muppets wouldn't be gone from the parks. I'm still salty about that.
No.
Still very salty about that. Boo. I still want to know whose idea that was to get rid of that. But
You know whose idea that was.
yeah, I know. But yeah, so I think
Great point, Lacey.
yeah, I agree 100%. So do you think the way we Disney would be any different? Lacey, Lariah, we'll start with you. Do you think, I know, Lacey, you've only been a couple times. Lariah, you've been once. Would your experience have been vastly different if there wasn't a skip the line feature, do you think?
I do.
How would it have been different?
Yeah. Well, I think that our schedule would have been a lot more lenient. Even though we're not the type of people to plan every second of the day, but we would need to be in one part of the park to meet our fast passes because, when you have those or lightning lanes now, when you have those, you might as well take advantage of it and you don't want to lose that, especially for rides that have longer lines. But I think if they didn't have that, then I don't know. I feel like we would have probably moseyed along a little bit more and just kind of went by wait times.
Yep. Yeah, that's such a good point, because when you have the skip the line feature, you almost have to plan your day around that. And that's such a different way than most people would typically do a vacation or a theme park, or, well, not anymore. I think most theme parks have that skip the line feature, but I think so much, like, you might explore the parks just differently, or like you said, bounce back and forth more for wait times, or not worry so much about wait times. You want to get on something, you just get on it, and you just live your life in that moment and know that you're going to have to wait in lines. I think it would be an interesting experience. I'm trying to think. So, Lariah, when we went to Disney with you in the before times, did we do a lot of the Fast Passes? Because it was still Fast Pass Plus at that point. Did we do a lot of that? Were we kind of manipulating trying to get Fast Passes, or did we just live with our 3 and kind of do everything else? I can't remember.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but actually, I think we only had 2 fast passes. I think one was for Flights of Passage and one was for the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, I believe.
Okay.
So we didn't do it a ton. I think Candace was checking every now and again, especially since it was my first time and Lacey's second time. She was trying to ask us what we were wanting to prioritize. And so she was checking every now and again. And if something happened to pop up, she would get on it. But it wasn't like, we need to do this. It was like, if we happened to cross it, we would do it. But I think, yeah, Flights of Passage and Seven Dwarfs Mine Trains.
We had some every day, because you get 3 every day, and then once you use them, then you can get more, right? That's how it used to be.
Yes.
And yeah, those might just be the ones you remember, because when we were in Hollywood Studios, we definitely had fast passes for Toy Story Mania.
Yes.
Okay,
And
that's right. Okay.
I think we had some for Rock and Roller Coaster, but we didn't have to use it because the wait time was so, like, it was like 5 minutes or something.
Right.
So we just decided to go on it then instead.
Oh, I do remember that. Yeah, we just didn't wait in that line. Yeah, I think, I honestly think I would prefer the parks without the skip the line. But
I
that's just me.
agree. I think a few times I was a little bummed that I didn't get to see the queue, because Disney is known for their queues.
Yep.
Even though I was super grateful, especially for it, being my first time, so I would be able to do a lot more without having to wait in a very long line. But that's what the queues are for. And
Right.
I don't think that people appreciate them as much. So maybe they would do some more fun things with the queues if those weren't a thing.
Yeah, maybe the other Pandora attraction would have been something more than rope if people weren't trying to bypass it with a fast pass. But I've said, Lariah, the trip that we took with you was when I realized that I would not go on Seven Dwarfs Mine Train with a fast pass or a Genie Plus again. I did not like that attraction as a skip the line ride, because the queue is, I think, what makes that attraction.
Right. And you got to have the whole story.
Yeah.
And when you skip the line, it's not as fun. It's not as storytelling.
Yep. Yeah, agreed. I feel like a broken record this season because I've said it a lot. Disney is about the storytelling. Disney is there to tell you a story. If you just want to go on roller coaster, there are parks that are better suited for you. You'll have more fun at other parks. But if you embrace the story, there is nothing like a Disney vacation.
Exactly.
Reverend.
Word.
Well, okay. This was a fun. There were several more on my list, but I won't. They were a little bit more abstract, so maybe we'll do that next season or whatever. We'll do another what if. I can talk Candace into doing another what if. I don't think she likes these. She's giving me that disgusted look again. So, but yeah. Come out to our social medias. Let us know. We asked you a couple questions throughout this to come out and interact with us. Come out and give us your opinion on our social medias. And we look forward to hearing from you. Next week, we're going to be doing our end of season wrap up. And then we'll also announce kind of what we're going to do during the break to keep things moving along and continuing to release a little bit of content during break. So we'll talk to you a little bit more about that next week as well. And we look forward to bringing you another fantastic episode next week. And remember, there is always a great, big, beautiful tomorrow.
And we'll see you real soon.